Now, when I tell you guys that a lot of these politicians, especially in Grenada, are utterly confused about their personal political philosophy and their ideological understanding or leaning, now that is not an understatement. And my belief was reinforced today when I looked at the interview that Peter David, potential candidate for the leader of the NNP, when I looked at his interview he had with Kellon Bob, then I know that either this man is utterly confused about his personal political ideology, or he must have some agenda to probably dismantle the NNP party. Now just imagine, here is a man campaigning, for the possible leadership of the NNP party. Now, if you'd look at my video, which I made earlier about the crisis in the NNP party, where I clearly explained that NNP is a center-right party and the NDC is a center-left party. Now, Holness and Atney, the guy from St. Lucia, right, came to Grenada in a rally and a dinner and a celebration of the 40th anniversary of NNP, and reinforced the idea and reminded the people of the NNP party that the NNP party is a center-right party subscribing to center-right values. Again, the NNP party is allied with center-right-like parties in the Caribbean and is part of the Caribbean Democratic Union, which is a center-right organization and has international alliances with the International Democrat Union, which is a center-right organization. Then this man comes, and throughout the interview, all he makes references to is people like Castro, and he talks, and he makes references, and he holds up as models people like Bernie Sanders, an avowed leftist, an avowed commie of sorts. These are the people he's making reference to. Then he's making reference to Castro. He's actually the leader of the Republican Party now that is going to be in power. He's actually antagonistic to Trump. So I am trying to understand where this man's head is at. You're a part of the NNP, a center-right party. Your sister party internationally is pretty much the Republican Party in the United States. Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, and then you come and you're antagonistic towards Trump, or you're throwing shade at Trump. Now tell me how smart strategically that is in the midst of just a week before a possible convention where you are vying for the leadership of the NNP party. So it clearly tells me that either this man does not understand his own personal political ideology or philosophy, or he does understand his own personal political ideology or philosophy, and his aim with his personal ideology and philosophy of more adapted to center-left or leftist ideology, decides that he's going to come and he's going to run for the leadership of a center-right party. Now, this is utter confusion. So this man is basically saying, I don't care about the platform of the NNP party. I don't care about the doctrine of the NNP party, which is fundamentally a center-right doctrine. Again, I can't help but remind you that Holness and Atney came from St. Lucia. okay, and reminded the NNP, even Dr. Keith Mitchell, before they had even done that, reminded the NNP party of their fundamental doctrine of being a center-right party and preservation of legacy. But however, it seems that Peter David says, oh, I don't care about the fundamental doctrine of the NNP party. I came into the NNP, and obviously he has a personal doctrine, which is not center-right. And I don't care about the NNP platform. It's about me. And I am running. And I notice that this gentleman said I about 40 times during the interview. Now, is this a coincidence? There was no we will work together in the NN party to bring some sort of resolution to the problems, but it was I. Don't take my word for it. I want you to look, and there are a bunch of fact checkers out there and stuff like that. I want you to look at the interview and see how many times this man has said I. How many times you can count that he said I. As a matter of fact, we're going to review the interview and we're going to comment on it. So then you can count the amount of I's that he said in the interview. And this is a clear and present danger for the NNP party. If your political doctrine in the NNP party, if you subscribe to a center-right doctrine, and here is a man openly telling you that he fundamentally subscribes to center-left policies, right? And even leftist policies, and he wants to become the leader of your party. Well, you must be mad, blind, or crazy. Anybody within your party that actually embraces this man to become leader of your party, you must have lost your mind. Then you yourselves, and how you talking and making references to people in the party who loves him so much, and then some of them was saying when he was actually in the NDC party that, oh, he was in the wrong party. But based on what this man is saying, based on this man's personal political philosophy, this man does not belong in an NNP party. This man does not belong in a center-right party. This man belongs in a center-left or leftist party. So he's in the wrong place. It's a wrong peg in a square hole. This man needs his own party where he can propagate his own ideas. All these ideas he has about development of Grenada, do this through your own party. Don't do this on the architecture of an NNP party that was built by the arduous work of the people who built the party. But it's not surprising. It is not surprising. We have seen this before. This is the modus operandi of these people. What you see happening now, just as I've told you in the NNP crisis video I made, where I said to you that pretty much the NDC party has been hijacked by these old commies and lefties. Now, this is what they do. They don't like to create anything fundamentally from scratch. They don't like to build things from scratch. It is the same thing they did in the 70s. After rural proletariat and after rural middle-class intelligentsia worked their asses off to build the jewel movement, then what did you have? A bunch of petty bourgeoisie came into the jewel, hijacked the party, and then you had the new jewel movement. So we have seen this before. So I am telling you, this is a clear and present danger. That if, should it be forbid, that this gentleman gets control in the NNP party, then again, as I told you before, what you would have is two center-left parties in Grenada. So the electorate would not have a choice in terms of political policy platforms. And that, my friends, is actually unhealthy, and dangerous for a democracy in Grenada. But politicians, what are politicians' aims? Their aims are to stay in power, to get elected, to get power at all costs. So, as I said, there's quite a possibility. There's no mystery now that Dr. Keith Mitchell, say what you want about the man, but you could understand fundamentally why he's suspicious and why he's worried about a Peter David leadership in NNP party. Because as I said before, being the leader of the NNP party, Mr. David would have the power to transform that center-right party into a center-left party. And then I don't see it being a problem for him to actually merge with the NDC party in the name of political power. Merge with the NDC party and there be some sort of power sharing. And then all the other people in the NNP party who worked so hard over the years would be silenced and would be sidetracked. So for all you politicians, all you potential politicians in the NNP party who think that it would be a good thing for Mr. David to win leadership of the party, boy, you quote unquote shooting yourself in the foot. You basically destroying your chances of any political power. So go ahead. Destroy your party and destroy yourselves politically. Let's see how that'll work out. So for the life of me, I am trying to figure what is this man's motivation in saying those things in an open forum with a week left, and you want to become the leader of the NNP party? Well, unless the delegates in the NNP party do not understand the political doctrine of the party or the philosophy of the NNP party, and they don't understand what a Peter David leadership of the NNP party means, then by all means, proceed. Because if any delegate fundamentally understands what the NNP party means or what it stands for, then I don't understand how you would want, obviously, a center-left leaning guy as the leader of your center-right party. Then you must be confused. And if the layman and woman of the NNP party, unless the executive and the upper echelon leadership of the party did not explain to you what your party is about, then if you yourselves would want that type of leadership in your party, then you too are confused about the fundamental platform and what the NNP party stands for. So anyone that is not clear about their personal political doctrine, then tell me how that person would come into a party and claim that they're the one who's best suited to unify that party. If you're not clear about your own personal political doctrine, or your personal political doctrine is antithesis to the doctrine of the party that you're trying to lead, then how would you bring unity? How would you unify that party under the banner of a center-right party when you personally do not subscribe to the fundamental principles of center-right parties? You cannot be a unifying symbol of the party. You cannot bring the party together. So all this talk that you will see in the discussion with Kellen about bringing the party together is a bunch of hogwash. So let's take a look at the video with the interview with Kellen Bob, and we'll make some comments on it.
Someone who comes from the belly and the bowels of the new national party will lead this party party while I can relax at home and watch in peace.
Where some in the party do not trust you.
I don't want to spend the morning trying to figure out why such vile attacks have been made on me. All I can say is this, that I feel a responsibility to the party to not wanting to attack. No, it's just that I believe there's a large section of people in Grenada who don't want that kind of rancor. They want a discussion about development. We want to disagree, but disagree on how we develop. Do we focus on agriculture? Do we focus on housing? Do we focus on tourism? Do we focus on industry?
Well, it's all well and good to talk about focusing on all these fancy aspects of the economy and developing the economy, as he had said. But there must be, in all of this, for all of this to take place, there must be political, doctrinal clarity. Because political doctrine is the engine that drives all of that development. It's a significant part of the engine that drives that development. So obviously, I thought it was an attempt to sidetrack from what Kellan Bob would have asked him in that particular context.
And the sideshow, if I call it that, about the attacks on me, well, Kellan, you know, I've sustained much worse than that before. And I'm here, still standing, still fighting.
Well, let's be clear. Succession and the leadership of the NNP party ain't no sideshow. Contest for that leadership, campaigning for that leadership, whatever differences and arguments that will come out of that contest is no sideshow. It's extremely significant. It's something that should be contested. So if he's going to pretend to take the high road and say, oh, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm not going to address all these attacks on me, that is a cop-out. And many would see through that.
Explaining it is difficult. That once I indicated my intention to seek the leadership, then things seem to have changed. But it is what it is.
Well, but let us you know, and you said you have no clue as to why your leader has lost trust in you. But without mentioning your name, and of course we know who he's referring to, he can't be referring to anyone else in the party. He indicated that you were meeting with delegates, Mr. David, and also paying delegates, which some might say amounts to bribery.
Well, I find it difficult that Mr. David, especially based on his profession, will find that it's hard or difficult to explain why there may have been a change of heart on the part of Dr. Keith Mitchell when he, Peter David, decided to run for the leadership of the party. Now, it's one thing if you're part of the party and you're doing what you have to do, but then you, all of a sudden, decide that you want to run for the leadership of the party. That's a whole different ballgame, partner. It's like a father having a daughter, and she's dating a guy, and, you know, the father's thinking, oh, this is not going to go anywhere. But then if she comes and says, Dad, I want to marry this guy, this is a whole different ballgame. This is a lifelong commitment. This implies children. This implies so many things that have far-reaching consequences. This implies inheritance of the father's wealth. So don't be pretentious about you not understanding why Keith Mitchell will have some sort of legitimate concern in you becoming the leader of the NNP party.
First of all, I don't know who the delegates are. In fact, that's one of the issues we have. This issue of delegate count, because there is a mechanism that has been put in place to choose the delegates that I believe is quite unconstitutional.
So here it is. Kellan brought up some issue that I think was Dr. Keith Mitchell that kind of mentioned it in a roundabout way about the possibility of him bribing delegates. And instead of just outright refuting this, he laughs it off, and then he turns around and he says, oh, well, I don't even know who the delegates are. How could I bribe? And then he attacks the mechanism in place. The mechanism that is in place to actually elect those delegates. So I don't know. I don't know how strategically wise, if you're looking to be the leader of the party, to attack the mechanism by which the party chooses its delegates. I don't know. In terms of strategy, I don't know. I think part of the problem is that Mr. David fundamentally, after being, so long in the NNP party, fundamentally does not understand the leadership type of the NNP. And you would think by now he would have been familiar with the leadership of the NNP party. And me, who was not even involved, looking from afar, you can tell that the NNP party has a centralized leadership where a lot of the power of the party is concentrated in Dr. Keith Mitchell. They may have a democratic structure in place, but obviously, out of love, out of respect, out of whatever, I don't know, seniority or being in a party for so long, there is immense power concentrated in Dr. Keith Mitchell. So if you come into a party, you should take the cues. You should understand. If you decide, hey, you want to run for the party, strategically, political strategy should tell you, you know what? Let me try to gauge how the centralized leadership of the party thinks about me possibly running. Let me do some behind the scenes negotiation with the centralized leadership of the party. You understand? And then I could achieve what I want to achieve in a more strategic way. Instead of getting to a situation where you openly express your desire to become the leader of the party without having any discussions with the centralized leadership of the party, without gauging how that centralized leadership would feel if you were to offer up your possibility of becoming or your candidacy for the leadership of the party. That would have been the first strategic move to gauge where you stand in the party. And then if you realize that the time was not right, you probably could have bid your time. So, I don't know. It kind of makes me question the political prowess of the gentleman.
I mean, I would be foolish to first of all try to bribe delegates, but secondly, I don't know who the delegates are. That we need to know the list of delegates because none of us knows that list of delegates. And I do hope and I do wish that I can become aware of the national delegate list. And look, and this talk of bribery is absolute nonsense. Nobody's called my name, and I hope he was not referring to me.
So after he talks about what seems to be some sort of broken mechanism in terms of the election of delegates, then after he's talked at length about the broken mechanism, then he says, oh, no, I don't know anything about bribing anybody. It took him so long to get to the, I did not bribe anybody,
So the
Yes.
fact that I speak to Kennedy or I speak to Django or I speak to Deaton or I speak to anybody is of no moment.
So he trivializes this relationship with these people as, I speak to everybody. But interestingly enough, one of the gentlemen that Kellon Bob referred to was adamant that he's the only one capable of leading the NNP party after Dr. Keith Mitchell. To get that level of endorsement, this is not no trivial relationship. This is not no basic platonic relationship. Come on. Come on.
What is the future role for Mr. Peter David in the new national party if you become the leader? If you do become the leader, there are still going to be those questions around unity and unifying and galvanizing the political organization. If you do not become leader, there would still be questions around unity and galvanizing the organization.
Well, I think
what happens post December 15th, sir?
Well, we have to get to December 15th. And one of the major issues I have with December 15th is what I consider to be undemocratic practices. I've raised it in the party. I've raised it with members of the party, what I call the gerrymandering of the voters list, the whole mechanism, the screening committee, for example, that's there, the fact that there are a few people elected by the executive to determine whether or not persons can run to screen them.
So with that question there, I think Kellon kind of threw him a softball, and gave him an opportunity so that he can campaign of sorts for the leadership of the party, where he could have said, all his plans to bring the party together, all his plans to take the party to win in the next election, all his plans for development of Grenada as a leader of the party. But instead, what did he choose to focus on? He chose to focus on problems within the party and with the mechanism of choosing delegates, which is something I think probably he could have left to be discussed internally within the party. If you're looking to gain leadership of the party, I don't see why you should talk about broken mechanisms in the party about leadership. To me, it seems like you're setting it up so to say, okay, well, if I lose, then this is the reason why I didn't win. That sort of thing.
The list. And if there are mechanisms that are not allowing for the right person to emerge, then it will not be the will of the people. You see,
I want you guys to take a look at Kellan's expression. Just look what he's saying. He's basically saying, his body language is saying, look, this is not really what I asked you about broken mechanisms of the party. I asked you, about your role as leader of the party.
Again, so let us talk about that, because you speak here about this screening committee.
I'm not sure who else is in limbo, but I'm in limbo because I have not heard from the screening committee with respect.
So again, Kellan Bob tried to bring him back on track, on focus on the question he's asking, but I guess, he was more concerned about the screening committee and how much he's being sidelined in the process. And he kind of alluded to Lawrence talking about the problems with the democratic process of the screening committee. So probably, I don't know, he's found an ally, or he feels he has an ally in Lawrence Joseph. I don't know, probably.
And focus on what needs to be focused on. We need to focus on how, as a party, first of all, we win the next general election. And secondly, how do we build this country? Because if we pursue this path, it is unfortunate, but I believe we are taking the party down a road that would make its ability to win the election quite difficult. Because when you proceed in a divided way, and I have done nothing in my view, if I've done anything, I'm sure somebody would have let me know by now, to divide this party.
So the gentleman says that, the focus should be on party unity, on winning the next election, on developing Grenada. But previously, Bob gave him an opportunity to show how he would be able to do those things as leader of the party. And he didn't seize the opportunity.
Proceed in this divided way, our ability to win the next election will be in question. And I believe, that is why I put up myself, that I am the best person to unite this party, unite the country, present the country in an agenda, build the party, and take us into a successful election. I think I am.
Well, I mean, this is contradictory, because I don't understand how the gentleman sees himself as being the one to unite the party when he himself has not shown doctrinal clarity, when he himself does not seem to subscribe to the political platform or policy doctrine of the NNP. So I don't see how you unite a party when you yourself obviously do not subscribe to the fundamental tenets of the NNP party. And I mean, in a local context, this may work if, the NNP was some sort of isolated party without alliances regionally, without alliances internationally, and it was just a localized Grenadian party. But that is not the case. There are established alliances that the NNP has. There's certain things that are expected from the NNP party regionally. There's certain things that are expected from the NNP party internationally. So how does the gentleman fit into that sort of structure, established structure of the NNP party? How does the gentleman spearhead that political doctrine or platform and alliances of the NNP party? That's a very difficult thing to understand. And I hate to be so blunt and serious about it, but these are the things that the NNP party, if they don't reconcile right now, if they don't resolve right now, these are some of the things that sooner or later, they will have some sort of conflict, and they will have a problem in their hands in dealing with those issues. So those issues better be resolved now before it's too late. It will be extremely difficult, okay, for you to be able to unite a party under the banner of a center-right doctrine if you yourself do not believe in those fundamental principles. It's nearly impossible to unite the party under that banner, unless, of course, your intent is to transform the party, okay, so that it's more doctrinally in line with your political philosophy, and then probably you might have, some other plan for the party. But as it stands, and and I think everybody knows, doctrinally, I don't think many people believe that a gentleman is in line with the political philosophy and doctrine of the NNP party. Now, if you're not, what would happen to the already established alliances regionally and internationally that the party has? What are you going to do with those alliances? Would those alliances trust you as the leadership of the party, knowing what they might believe? And it's quite obvious. It's not like, the gentleman didn't come on here and made pretensions on the Bob report, to say, well, I am center right. I've changed. I am center right. Obviously, by the things he has said, shows that he's not center right. So I believe regional alliances will see through that. And these wolves, these foxes and these cunning people at the international level, oh boy, then they definitely see that this gentleman is not center right. So I think they will probably, in some respects, if he were to gain leadership of the party, might just distance himself from the party. Because simple diplomacy will dictate that you have an incoming administration, which actually, again, is your big sister via the International Democratic Union, and you're going to throw shade on the leader of that party when there's so many things, in terms of relationship that you would be depending on that big sister for? Are we living, 40 years ago or something like that? And we don't understand what's happening in the world?
I've won the town of St. George twice with the NNP, twice with the NDC, which means I have cross-party appeal, and we need to win back people from the NDC if we are going to win this election. And I believe I'm best placed to deal with that.
Well, that is not entirely true. That just means that you have extreme political support in the tongue of St. George. As to whether or not there is countrywide appeal, that is a whole different ballgame. And countrywide appeal is what is necessary to lead a party. And again, we have to understand, sometimes people don't vote for individuals. Sometimes they vote for the party.
So what I hear you here saying is that your platform is sort of a unity platform, which is different from Dr. Mitchell's message. He's going to transition to a younger generation. But Mr. David, you are not part of that younger generation.
I will tell you something that you will understand.
Yes, sir.
The Democratic candidate who appealed to the youth most was who? Bernie Sanders. He was the oldest member. Bernie Sanders appealed to the youth more than any one of these other candidates. I don't think it's a question of age.
And here it is again. He uses Bernie Sanders as some sort of role model. And he, of all the people he could have called, he called an avowed leftist, an avowed commie in a sense. Okay? That's who he looks to answer this question. But let us look at what happened to Bernie Sanders. Even though Bernie Sanders had all this youthful appeal, what did the party stalwarts in the Democrat Party did? They realized that sort of appeal was based on sensationalism. They realized that sort of appeal would not have gotten them to win an election. That's the reason why they didn't want to chance it with Bernie Sanders. And that is why they made sure within their whole convention that they sidelined Bernie Sanders. So if he's trying to say, and he's using Bernie Sanders as a model, which I don't think was a good idea, or to claim that he has some sort of likeness to Bernie Sanders, that's a problem. Again, one, Bernie Sanders stands for everything that is antithesis to the NNP party. Two, Bernie Sanders was sidelined by the Democrat Party. So does the gentleman want to suffer the same fate?
Let's stop focusing on the age and let's focus on the agenda. You can bring in young people as happened with the NDC. Everybody has come to the conclusion that the youth in the NDC they are not doing what they were elected to do, despite the fact that they are young.
Well, I agree about agenda, but what is the agenda? What is your agenda? The people in the NNP party are used to getting things done via a center-right engine or agenda. That is what facilitates, that is what drives everything else in the NNP party, is that center-right doctrine and agenda. So what is your agenda? The question is, would the gentleman be able to motivate the people within the NNP who is used to a center-right agenda and way of doing things? There would be conflict. There obviously would be conflict because, as we're realized, the gentleman has a center-left leaning agenda.
As we did before, who is young and who is old. That's not the problem. The problem is, how do we unify our people around a development agenda?
Well, I'm going to play this piece for a little while so you guys can do the counting. You guys can see how many times he said I in this little segment. I'm going to let it run for a little while. Count among the eyes, just in that little segment.
To me, that's the agenda we need to move forward on. So I believe that I have the capacity to bring the youth. I have the capacity to bring the women. I have the capacity to bring the 40s, 50s, 60s. I have the capacity to bring businessmen. I brought many businesses into this country, the hotels. The 3 major hotels under construction now were brought in large part because of my initiative. I operated quite successfully in agriculture, in labor, in tourism, and in foreign affairs. So if you're talking about capacity, Judd, I believe I just have the best capacity to do that, Dr. Bob, and I just want to present that agenda, but given the opportunity to have a fair opportunity at the convention.
Well, you keep saying you and I, and that was another issue there that, well, perhaps the New National Party, they invited you into the government. So it's not only you per se. I mean, I know you're campaigning, but you were given that opportunity and you served at the pleasure of Dr. Mitchell.
So there it is. Bob actually told him that, no, wait. You served in the architecture of an NNP. So it wasn't just you or I. I also counted about 12 eyes in that segment. I don't know how much you guys counted.